Hi guys, I'm Tyler Glantz, and I handle our locally grown program at Price Chopper's corporate offices. And I got Mr. Nick here.
I'm Nick Forster. I've been in produce for 10 years. I've been a produce manager for only about a month and a half now, and I'm in the Watervliet store.
Okay, so we're just going to go over the packets that you guys all have. Okay. So on our list, first thing we're going to go over is snap peas. Snow or snap peas. I think we do both. You can bring both to us. So you pack them in clamshells, and you put 6 clamshells to a strawberry flat. This is a strawberry flat. And you can get empty strawberry flats at your Price Chopper. Tell them that Tyler sent you. Okay. So basically, you want to pack the clamshell. Pack it so that it's full, but not like overflowing.
And the package is full.
And the package is full, yeah. The other thing with peas is you have to make sure that they're washed and clean. Peas can get dirt on them fairly easily, and you don't want to bring dirty peas to Price Chopper. We like our peas clean. And so you pack it like that. That's, I'd say, full enough, right?
Yes.
And then, so you pack 6 of them in a flat like this. And then that would be 1 case of peas. Yeah, squash.
Wash.
Okay, so squash. For sizing, one of the most difficult things about wholesaling summer squash is sizing, especially locally, because we have a lot of farmers that like to give us what we call baseball bats. They're these gigantic squashes. Our specification for summer squash is 8 to 10 inches in length. If it's longer than that, it's usually fat, and the customers don't typically want their squash that fat. 2 to 2.5 inches around. And you want to make sure you leave a little bit of stem on the end, which usually when you're picking off the plant, it usually leaves about this. They're fairly easy to pick. And then, and with these, you want to make sure they're washed, just like the peas.
I think we said everything should be washed.
Yeah, you don't want to bring in dirty stuff. The thing to remember that we always say at Price Chopper is that the customers purchase like with their eyes, so they look and they see, oh, look at that nice looking zucchini, and they don't look at like a dirty piece of squash. They, oh, I want to take that home and cook it up, you know. So you know, put that. What we got?
How do you package those?
They're going in the paper sacks.
Yeah,
The
the store gives you, I think you got to get them right from the front end, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's going to be.
Yeah, the front end, you can ask for this at the back door too, and they'll help you. The front end will give you a paper sack to pack them in, and it's just a grocery bag. And
10 pounds.
yeah, 10 pounds in each sack is what we're looking for. Okay. Swiss chard. One of my favorite produce items. This is about 4 inches around, and this is what we want for a bunch of Swiss chard. You guys aren't industrial farmers, so we don't expect the industrial label of the UPC, but you can use rubber bands, and if you have thicker ones, they're usually better than the thin ones we have here, but you just pack it up until about like maybe an inch away from where the leaves start to branch out. And you just want to make sure they're tight, wrapped tight, so that when they stack it on the shelf it doesn't come apart. And these I think are packed in a paper sack.
Yep, 6 bunches in a paper sack.
6 bunches in a paper sack.
And usually what we look for in green Swiss is you want to avoid like the yellow and damaged leaves that we have in this bunch right here that hasn't been processed yet. And also insect damaged leaves, so you know, insects will get in there and eat little holes in the leaves. So avoid packing them in your bunches.
That's right. Oh, and wilting. You don't want something that's been sitting out in the sun and you're bringing it in, it's all dying looking. Nice healthy leaves. What else?
Any recommendations on how to avoid the wilting?
Well, right here it says damp newspaper on the top of the jar when you pack it in the box. It's off, you know, just to keep it moist, like our misting system
Right,
too,
right.
in the stores.
Okay. Tomatoes. Okay, so I have here a quart of grape tomatoes. What we like in grape tomatoes is good color, and you can bring either golden or red grape tomatoes. We mostly sell the red ones, but we always like the local yellow tomato. They can't be green, obviously. You want to pick them when they're full color. Green tomatoes, our customers don't really have an interest in them. Oh yeah, and the stems have to be off. Sometimes when you pick grape tomatoes, they'll leave a little bit of stem, and some people like that, especially out of the garden. But typically, we like them stemless. And then you're going to pack these the same way as the peas, in a flat like this. 6 of them in a flat, bring it to the back door, and they'll give you more strawberry flats. Okay, hard squash.
Butternut.
Okay. A lot of hard squashes are basically the same in terms of the way that they grow, so we're going to go over butternut, which is more common hard squash. Okay, so for color, as butternut squash ripens, it goes from like a whitish color until like a tannish color. And what we look for is a good, like a darker tan color. White squash, as it starts to get tan, it is ripe, but we like it to have color. It's more visually appealing to the customer. For sizing, should be 7 inches or more. And another thing we like to say is that it should have this bowing out shape. But typically we'll take mostly any kind of shape because they can grow in some strange shapes. And then obviously with this, it has to be washed just like any other item, and you pack them in paper sacks, 10 pounds in the sack. So for this would probably be 2 by 2 or 3 in a sack.
The stem?
Oh, and the stem, it has to have a little bit of stem. Especially with picking hard squash, it's easy to pick it and the stem will completely come off, so you want to just be careful when you're picking them and make sure that there's that little bit of stem on the end. And pickling cukes. Pickling cukes are used, as their name suggests, for pickling. And so they're a lot smaller than a traditional cucumber, which is used for slicing, which we call slicing cucumber. So for these, you want to make sure that you have the right size, because after a certain point they get big and they can end up just being a regular cucumber. So a one like this that's thick and a little too long is something you don't want to send to the store. 3 to 4 inches in length is usually what we look for, and a couple inches around, so not too thin but not too thick. And then you want to make sure that they're straight. Sometimes if you get a real messy cucumber plant, it'll throw out some cucumbers that are twisty. They have to be straight. And they're packed 25 in a Price Chopper paper sack. And I guess for on these, they're more bumpy than a regular cucumber, so bumps are okay, but you want to make sure that it has good color and that it's not like half white or has dents in it, stuff like that. Okay, so this is called an invoice sheet or a bill. Our farmers usually give us an invoice that's on like a rectangle sheet of paper and has a bunch of copies, and this will be the one that you guys use. Basically, it just lists the items that you have available or that you grow, And so whatever you're bringing to the back door, you'll fill in with a quantity. So if you have one flat of peas, you'll fill it in with one here, and then a total, a cost each, and a total cost. So if you're bringing in a flat of these and 2 flats of tomatoes, you would put the cost of the peas here, the cost of the tomatoes, and then a total. And then the store will fill out the store number, and a produce manager or store receiving clerk will sign the bill. And I guess you guys want to have 3 copies, one for our corporate office so we can pay you guys, and one for your 4-H team, and one for you to keep for your records.
Do you have any tips you can give the kids for growing?
So for growing tips, like with greens, one of the things, especially with gardens, is a lot of people have trouble with bugs, especially like Japanese beetles around here. They can be pretty pesky and bite little holes in the leaves. And as soon as a few of the leaves have some holes on them, they're pretty much, I mean, you can consume them, but as far as selling them at your local supermarket like Price Chopper, we're not really gonna, we don't want something that has like holes in the leaves. So I guess the best way to avoid that without using harmful chemicals is to just make sure you're keeping an eye on the plants. I usually check mine before I go to work and when I get home from work. Usually watering them hard enough will get the bugs off, at least for until the next time you check them. And the other thing is when you pick them, you want to make sure that the leaves are sort of not like evenly developed to where they're all the same size, but where so they're all about the same size, so that when you bunch them, you know, they look nice and they present well to when they end up on the store shelf to the customer. What else do I know about that you can grow? Oh, the peas. Especially with peas like this, you want to make sure that you pick them before they get fat and meaty. Our customers like peas that are flat and have a little bit of where you can feel inside, but not to where it's puffing out. That way they have a good crunch when you cook them or however you use them. And what else?
Clean is really important.
Clean is very important. You want to make sure you're...
When you're cutting, when you're removing the ones that have to have a stem, are you better off using like
Knife.
snippers or a knife rather than pulling?
It probably, yeah, it would be easier if you have a way of cutting it off, like garden clippers, or if you have scissors that are big enough. I mean, if you're an expert at picking off a squash, you can usually get pretty good at getting about this much, or a little more, a little less. But if you pull the wrong way, usually the whole thing will come off, and typically these look better than one that's got a little bit of a groove in it. And when they have a groove in it from either cutting it off the wrong way, it might start to rot at the top and won't present well on a store shelf.
So how do you pull it off the...
When I pull, I don't know if this is like the way you're supposed to, but I usually just twist a couple times and pull up a little.
Okay.
Especially with pumpkins. Pumpkins, you want to have a good amount of stem on them because they look nice with a little stem. And those I turn and they usually come off. I don't know if you guys will have the same luck with them.
Good, that's good.
So,
When you say wash everything, they also have to pat them dry, right?
right, yeah.
Because you don't want a bunch of
So
wet
explain that.
junk.
Yeah, okay, yeah. When we say we want to wash and clean, you just have to make sure that you're washing them and then drying them off, letting them dry, or either patting them down. Because if you put them in here wet, I mean, these are a little damp from being in our cooler at our store, but they'll get rotten at the bottom and it doesn't look nice for the customer.
And nobody wants to buy rotten peas.
Nobody wants to buy rotten produce, especially not at price check.
Right.
That's awesome. I thought that, because I remember they have to dry them or it's gonna be
Yeah,
rotten.
especially with peas. Peas can be a pain to dry, but they have to be dry.
Be careful, especially like with the tomatoes, what you pack, because oftentimes if you put one bad tomato in the package,
Yeah.
next thing you know, you end up with 10 bad tomatoes in your package. Because one tomato can turn a whole, what is this saying, the bad apple? The
Yeah,
rotten-
One bad
Yeah,
apple.
one bad apple.
Yeah.
Spoils the bunch.
Especially for the kids bringing to our warehouse because we're famous for having very tough inspectors. And I mean, they're not going to be tough. I mean, they're going to go easy on the kids. But typically, if they see, like, if there's one bad tomato, if they open up a case and they see a couple bad tomatoes still, they're not going to like the load or the product.
That's good.
When should they typically be harvesting in order to bring them? The same morning in most cases?
We like to think that our farmers pick their stuff in the morning and bring it to the store that day. But usually with most stuff, if you pick it like the night before and you head over to Price Chopper next day, that's usually okay.
That's
Good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Guys,
Thank you.
thank you.